Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Pac-Man here, and once again I am back from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos, as always. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Wario Land 4 for the Game Boy Advance. So, last time we have basically managed to able to get things started with the majority of the Ruby Passage by able to exploring for those two levels on the far left. We have the Curious Factory and also the Toxic Landfill. So today for this video is the fact that we are moving on to the next level in the Ruby Passage. And that's what appears to be 40 Below Fridge. Oh gee, this level might actually be, not gonna lie, pretty chilly. So as a result though, we'll have to stick around with it, I suppose. In addition to trying to able to go inside the fridge the whole time. And also, get this though, is the fact that in certain segments every once in a while, we have to rely on the forms of ice physics every once in a while. So because of that though, we'll try to get used to it. So, anyway though, so let's go ahead and get this level started. So yeah, there's not much else to explain about this particular level. It's just, well, we're gonna be exploring inside the refrigerator. So, yeah, I guess that's super obvious for the sake of the forms of the level's name. So, yeah, anyway, let's just go ahead and go for those conveyor belts, once much like the forms of how it does it on Curious Factory and stuff like that, so I guess that makes it totally obvious. So before we proceed, there is actually the block you can able to smash through to able to make things a bit quicker for you, but I honestly have no idea why I just managed to activate that to begin with. And from the get-go, from that particular chest, as you saw from about a few minutes ago, that basically we'll stumble across that particular chest that features the CD, but we'll try to go after it eventually though, because we have ourselves another familiar transformation. For those who have ever played Wario Land 3, this appears to be body forms of the Snowball Wario, and basically just like in the forms of how it does it in well, Wario Land 3, that basically though is the fact that if you manage able to get covered in snow, basically though if you stumble across a slanted hill, basically though is the fact that you'll be automatically turned into the forms of the snowball itself. So because of that though, and basically much like the forms of how it does it in Wario Land 3, basically though is the fact that you can able to once again just manage able to roll onto corresponding directions depending on which way you go, and basically though that is your only option to able to actually just to break those snowball blocks, so that way you can able to proceed for the majority of this stage. So yeah, you probably get the idea about that. So a few things I want to explain before I start to continue things on in terms of the forms of the Switch sales numbers that after the events of the last video on this, or specifically the previous part on this Let's Play. First of all, before we start mentioning about this specific stuff though, that is the fact that you notice how the fact that since yesterday, that's yes indeed, the Mexi Toys is now officially 11 years old now. So because of that though, gone awfully a lot of time, don't you think? Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, despite, you know, back in 2011, as I said it this earlier, ever since in The Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past playthrough, basically though, the beginning portion was a bit meh, and especially a really bad start, but things gets a little bit more positivity about the fact the matter is though is the fact that things gets a little bit more slightly better than the forms of how it does it back in 2011, because in 2011 I still think that usually what I think Sonic did actually tell me about this, and that is the fact that 2011 is actually a really rough start for the channel, just because, well, he did tell me in the past, saying about the fact that the camera quality is really rubbish, and also the majority of the commentary, that we keep on heavily borrowed some of the commentary from the other YouTubers, which I was like, what a total ripoff that is. And also, on top of all that stuff though, we keep on making shortest parts if possible. Well, at least that was in let's just say in Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, specifically in the Super Mario All-Stars version of the game, as well as Shadow the Hedgehog, as well as maybe Sonic in the Secret Rings, and what else is there? Oh yeah, Sonic Unleashed for the Nintendo Wii version most likely, and all kinds of Let's Plays in general, but I honestly have no words to say when it comes to likely just looking back. Well, despite the fact that those Let's Plays are no longer there anymore, because we have a superior versions of certain Let's Plays now. So because of that though, things get a lot more better than the forms of how it does it from about you know, 11 years ago. So because of that though, it still feels a lot more of improvements over the likes of ages ago, including 2012 actually, because of, well, it continues that trend tradition ever since in 2011, and maybe a bit on 2013, despite the fact that, usually it wasn't until in October in that year that we actually got ourselves our first ever capture card by the forms of the Easy Cap. Well, despite the quality is decent, but unfortunately though, we didn't get ourselves the actual game audio, and because of that though, it's alright I suppose, but it's nothing, amazing, to say the least, so... And aside from all that stuff though, it wasn't until in 2015 that it starts to get a little bit more of improvement, all in all, when it comes to likely for certain things throughout, so... Well, that's how I think about it. For those of you who already know about that, at least I've already mentioned about that a lot of times. During the course of, you know, again, like I stated earlier, ever since in The Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past Let's Play. So because of that though, there's no need to mention about that again. So let's just hope until likely next year it will be the 12th year anniversary at some point on 2023. Although it might be a bit early to discuss at this point, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. So, and the next thing we would like to discuss upon, and that is the fact that until tomorrow, after this video releases, is that the Netflix show called The Cuphead Show is going to be up on Netflix tomorrow, which I was really looking forward to it. Because, well, since then we've still got ourselves Cuphead on the Nintendo Switch, so that way we can play the game on the go, which is good. And also eventually that the DLC is still be coming, and during at some point by the end of June, so expecting to be hyped. And that's pretty much as far as I can say about it. Even though that's, as far as what I think I'll try to mention more about the forms of the Cuphead show, maybe at some point until next Monday, if I decide to go back onto The Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past, so that way I could able to actually easily give you my first impressions in terms of the forms of the Cuphead show to see how that show actually plays out. So, yeah, let me know in the comments below for the question of the day. Are you guys excited when it comes to able to try to watch the Cuphead show on Netflix? Because I am. Because as far as I'm aware, even though the animation style or the actual art style may look a little weird at first, but every once in a while though, I think I'm sort of used to it. Although, it almost tries inspired by the forms of how in the game itself, they usually just manage to have like a pretty cool, like, artistic approach for the sake of the forms of likely based off from the 1930s cartoons or something like that. Well, except the fact that it's all in color as opposed to black and white, so, which I guess is pretty cool. Anyway, so we found all the pieces of the stone now, so, yeah, I guess there's not much else to explain about this for the most part. Sometimes that this particular level might be a little bit too much emphasis on backtracking at certain points, especially noticeable if you try to able to go after multitude of items such as, for instance, you know, diamonds or gems, or especially noticeable with some of these stone pieces in general and all that stuff. But I'm sure that we're able to understand for that particular solution, so... Alright, before we activate that frog switch, we need to backtrack for a bit, because I'm pretty certain there might be something that's usually on between those two paths right here, which, I don't know which pathway should I take, but we'll give it a go if we manage to able to just, I don't know, roll down here. No, I guess that takes me into the exact same location as what I've already been into without any snowball transformation, so we'll just have to use that snowball instead, so... Oh, this will take me there, somewhere. Right onto the purple pipe, which... Oh yeah, might be familiar. For those who ever played Wario Land 2 and Wario Land 3, basically, we need to use that Yeti kind of creature enemy to let us get freezed up by that ice projectile, to able to bypass those spikes, and you should be able to get the blue diamond, no problem. See, stuff like that is self-explanatory, but some of these other, like, rooms like this, as I stated earlier, might be a bit tougher as you progress, so, especially noticeable, you always have to rely on the forms of, you know, Professor John a lot of times, so, Anyways, I think we've basically all sorted, besides the CD we need to obtain, so... But thankfully it's going to be at the very end of the level, so hopefully we'll stumble across for that. So, anyways, let's go and turn into a Snowball Wario, and roll into one of those slants as we go on. And I would like to be able to break that block, but don't worry, we'll be back for that eventually, so... If I couldn't think about it though, this particular section is kind of similar to the ones in, Toxic Landfill level in terms of the forms of the escape sequence, except the fact that it's all covered in like ice cubes and stuff like that to break through. So yeah, for the most part, this level's not too bad, honestly. It feels a bit unique in that regard, especially noticeable that actually gonna think about it, for every single level themes, in terms of Wario Land 4, in addition to the forms of any other Wario Land games as well, most of these level themes, to me, looks very unique in that respect, especially noticeable about the fact that, although sure, we're still able to come across into some of those familiar level themes, ranging from beach environment, as well as grassy fields environment, and also the jungle environment, but some level themes like frozen fridge, or even especially noticeable that the next level coming up will be pretty unique in that circumstances. And also on top of all that stuff though, the next patch is coming up, which I'm sure I'll talk more about that during at some point on next Tuesday and next Thursday, which respectively. So yeah, I guess there's not much else to say for this point, so... Anyways, we need to get past for these little Yeti creatures, so just in case we can able to just backtrack for a bit, and then since we've actually already destroyed that particular block, that you know with the breakable block that we've already managed able to break, well, we now need to head back up there for the second time, but now we need to able to get ourselves, in addition to able to get ourselves, well, 500 gold coin, but also the CD itself. So either way though, let's just go ahead and obtain it, such as we obviously did. And now we can leave the level like so. And of course we're able to always manage to able to guarantee to get the gold crown, so yeah, I think we're basically all sorted here. And at this point is that I'm thinking I've almost reached up to about 100 million coins value. So in this case though, it feels like I'm almost going to be rich. Although most of the time though, I will try to able to spend on something off screens at some point, or it depends, so... Alright, so one more stone to go until we're able to go into the next boss. But before we get into that though, let's head into the Pinball Zone. So, easily without doubt one of the coolest levels in the game, because it managed to take place in the pinball machine. Seems pretty cool, don't you think? So, yeah, and in fact the matter is though, is the fact that that was before when Mario managed able to experience pinball, which is specifically Super Mario Ball, or Mario Pinball Land, but despite that game, there's a lot of frustration here and there, which, believe me, if we're about to be able to get into that game, actually, I just want to get this out of the way right now, because I feel like I'm about to be able to do Super Mario Ball Let's Play until at some point in the future. Let me tell you up front, that game is way too difficult, even likely a tense difficulty on my front. Because, you know, unlike any forms of, like, several other pinball games, like, let's just say a bit on, Sonic Spinball, like, I don't have any issues with that, besides the final level. But aside from all that stuff, though, that I found that game pretty easy to complete. Although, same applies to a little bit on the likes of Sonic Pinball Party, despite the fact that I'm still stuck on the actual one of the tournament section, which, or the story mode, as far as I like to pronounce that, so... Yeah, I might try and able to get back into that at some point, but anyway, so the majority of this level is going to be involved around for the Pinball Zone. As you can tell, that we need to able to constantly need to able to pick up those little, like, the face balls into one of those little, the capsule thingies and stuff like that. And if you do manage to able to insert, well, every time whenever you get to one of those sections, you have to do, like, well, you have to deal with this within 4 balls in order to progress. And because of that, though, if you manage to insert those 4 balls into one of those blue box things, as you can see, well, despite the fact that it needs to be open at first, so because of that, though, oh, this is fun. Basically, though, it's the fact that we need to catch on fire and hit those switches throughout, and then if you manage to get on top of that, then you should be able to get the diamond, so, or the blue diamond as far as I like to call it that. Or is it like a blue Chaos Emerald? Or maybe I'm just making a Sonic the Hedgehog reference, so... Speaking of Sonic the Hedgehog, though, is the fact that, not long now until, you know, like I stated earlier, that's, not long now until the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie is going to be on its way on the big screen, plus the forms of the actual, Paramount Plus for certain services. So because of that, though, I was really still excited for that film. So either way, though, yeah, expecting to be hyped for the next few months and all that stuff. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get that round coin that I've managed to guard, despite the fact that I just almost got about to get stuck on this particular part, but thankfully we've managed to, well, break free for that particular knowledge as such. So anyway, so I think you're able to do this for the majority of the entire level for obvious few sections worth noting for, like you know, Scout's able to actually insert those four face-looking balls into the actual blue box for 4 times in certain sections. And then if you've done so already, there's a chance you can able to actually get yourselves the 500 gold coin, by the way. That way you can able to actually easily get yourselves your highest value of coins or just cash in general at some point whenever you're trying to able to guarantee to get the gold crown just in time, just to see if you're able to finish the level like normal. So, and every time if you're able to insert those balls into one of those blue box machinery stuff, basically though, you're able to actually get like 50 coins each. So yeah, that's not much else to say about this. And obviously we need to be very cautious right here, especially we don't want to get hit by those certain spike balls. But thankfully though, we've managed to avoid those no problem. So, yeah, let's get back into the forms of that particular, how well does certain Nintendo Switch games do manage to sell well for certain Switch games. I already mentioned about the forms of the newer ones in the lineup, like, for instance, Mario Party Superstars, and I think out of all the 3 of those new types of games, well, usually Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shiny Pearl is easily the best one for the sake of the forms of adding new lists, while Mario Party Superstars was actually the second best, so far anyway. So as a result though, that's, yeah, I've already mentioned about Metroid Dread already, and also, did I mention Big Brain Academy, Brain vs. Brain, or something like that? And also WarioWare Get It Together, although I'm not exactly sure, but I think I should probably just able to start from what point I'm actually on. Oh, a random Japanese game called Momotaro Dentesimu wo Showa Hashi Harumatabun. I do apologize for that mispronunciation with that Japanese name of the game on the 27th spot on that certain Nintendo Switch game best-selling records. I figured that game is still on to 3 million copies sold, as in May the 13th in last year. So, oh, by the way, there's a CD right there, in case if you're about to be able to realize what that treasure was. So, anyway, and 28th spot goes to Kirby Star Allies. Nothing different from the sales records on that game, just still only sell for 2.93 million copies sold. So, nothing different from there. And number 29 spot goes to Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I think that game is still unchanged when it comes to sales number records. So I think it's still sold for 2.87 million copies sold, as in during the pandemic, during that particular year. Oh jeez. The 2020 March 31st. So yeah, there's not much else to explain. And also, in number 30 goes to Minecraft, and that particular version of Minecraft only got 2.81 million copies sold, as in December the 5th in last year. So at least it's actually getting some progress for the sales numbers for that front. And I think I already mentioned about Metroid Dread, so at this point Metroid Dread is now on 31. So in this case though, it sold for 2.74 million copies sold, so that's actually pretty super dope and good. And number 32 goes to New Pokemon Snap, despite the fact I still no longer have that game anymore, probably because it might be a bit too much brain taxing as far as I'm usually concerned when it comes to other side quests I do not even know about. But anyway, that game so far actually did pretty well, actually, for its increasing sales, for about 2.66 million copies sold as in November 28th last year. So at least it's doing pretty well. And nothing different from Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, at least in that game is now on 33 spots, and it still usually sells 2.65 million copies sold. And ARMS wasn't all that different though, despite the fact that that game is now on 34th place at the moment. Like, that game is now sold for 2.38 million copies sold, as in, well, I would classify for saying, like, since the final day of 2019, so nothing different from there. However though, on 35 goes to Mario Golf Super Rush, and that game at the moment actually sold for about 2.26 million copies sold, as in by the end of last year, in 2021. So, at least it's decent, I guess, but either way though, it's just the fact that that game does have a lot of mixed reception when it comes to most critics and fans alike, despite the fact that, well, I still find that game okay, though, in the end, though, but I digress. Oh, jeez, we got 6 minutes on this escape sequence? Alright, I'm sure we'll get loads of time on this particular last section of this particular Pinball Zone before we move on to the next boss in the game. So, anyway, let's continue. For number 36 goes to Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Nothing changes from there. Still only sold for 2.04 million copies sold, as in by the end of March last year. So yeah, nothing different from there. And Mario Plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle still only sold for 2 million copies sold, and it's actually now on to 37th place at the moment. So I guess nothing different from there. But at least I could imagine if Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hype, eventually if that comes out, then it will double the sales for that front, but we'll see what happens. 38 goes to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, yeah, and that game doesn't have any changes when it comes to sales records, so it's still sold for about 1.92 million copies sold, as in by the end of 2019, so nothing's changed. And Yoshi's Crafted World's pretty much the same thing, so it's just the fact that that game is now on 39 place position, but usually that game now sold for, well, it still usually says 1.84 million copies sold, as in by the end of 2019. And 40 goes to Miitopia, and that game sold for 1.63 million copies sold. So it's getting some progressioning for the sake of the sales numbers for certain games out there, as in the forms of by the end of 2021 to be expected. And Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is pretty much unchanged for the sales numbers, still only sold for 1.52 million copies sold, as in by the end of March last year. So, again, nothing different from there. And number 42 goes to Octopath Traveler, and in this case still hasn't changed the actual the sales numbers, so in this case it's still stuck with 1.5 million copies sold. So in this case though, is the fact that it usually last updated it since 2019 at the beginning of March, so at least I'm assuming so anyway. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, on the other hand, is pretty much still stuck in the 1.44 million copies sold, as in by the end of 2019, and that particular Switch port of that game is now on to 43 place position. So, kind of weird honestly, that usually Super Mario 3D World does it so well on the Switch version, while for some reason on the Switch version of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, it doesn't seem able to live up to the actual the sales record standpoint. I'm not exactly sure how, but usually that's as far as the case. So, and another newest game they did add it in for the sake of the forms of list of certain Switch games they've managed to able to receive so well in terms of the actual sales records, which is Pokemon Legends Arceus. So, I believe that game so far did manage to sell for about 1.42 million copies sold, as in, well, let's just say at the end of last month in this year so far. because usually that game recently came out ever since almost a month ago. So yeah, that's interesting. And usually Pokemon Legends Arceus at the moment is actually on 44th place at the moment. But hopefully it'll catch up at some point, but I'm not exactly sure when. And for number 45, we have Pokken Tournament DX. Still hasn't changed all that much, but either way though, it knows what it is. And I suppose I should probably be able to carry on mentioning about that stuff though, but I'm afraid I'm gonna have to be able to move on to the next topic, because as you can tell, we've already finished up with Pinball Zone, although I probably would able to continue more mentioning about the forms of the sales records listings until whenever I go back onto The Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past as well, so along with the forms of my first impressions on the Cuphead show, so anyways, let's move on to the next boss fight, which appears to be Cuckoo Condor. Alright, seems to be interesting. Because again, that particular boss is almost like a mechanical kind of boss fight. I would like to be able to actually do some mini games to be able to grind some more frog coins, but I think we'll take care of this boss fight, no problem. So as soon as we enter this door, then the boss fight begins. Now I'm quite surprised that we've almost at the halfway point in terms of this particular Let's Play already, so well, keep that in mind though is the fact that I'm pursuing this game will have potentially the exact same Let's Play length as in the forms of not only Wario Land Super Mario Land 3, but also Virtual Boy Wario Land, so yeah, expecting this Let's Play will be a bit shorter, just like in the forms of the other first two games, ever since when Wario managed to start his platforming genres. So, whilst unlike in Wario Land 2 and Wario Land 3, both of those games are quite lengthy and long. Although, mind you, for Wario World is also kind of short as well, just because of how the fact that there's not much else levels in there. So anyways, in this first part, as you noticed, that we've already dealt well with the first phase, all you have to do is basically you have to able to walk under the actual claw thing, and then every once in a while though, is the fact that when the actual claw goes down, you have to able to actually attack the actual hand, or the claw thingy, and then just attack its weak spot at the very top. But if you do it enough times, you'll move on to the second phase of the fight, where basically all we need to do now is the fact that we need to able to touch the egg in order able to actually just well, deal the damage on that particular weak spot at the very top. So basically a few times hits on him, and then keep that in mind you have to watch out for the forms of those little cheeks coming out of the egg, because if you dare attack them once they start flashing, they act out like bombs. So, oh no, this is a pretty easy boss fight, I'm not gonna lie. Certainly one of the easiest, next to Spoiled Rotten, as far as I'm usually concerned with that stuff. So there we go, once again we actually got ourselves not only the legendary treasure, but also 3 other treasure chests here now as well. And that pretty much concludes the Ruby Passage. So, I'm assuming at this point we're now on to the halfway point in terms of Wario Land 4. So, yeah, I told you this Let's Play is going to be super short and everything. So, I think, suffice to say, that, well, we only got 2 more passages left. So, in this case, though, we just double check if there are some things I'm usually... Yep, everything's completed in there. So, suffice to say, we'll get the endings up for this point right here. So, join me next time on Let's Play of Wario Land 4. That is the fact that we're going to be hit on to probably is my favorite passage in the entire game, which is the Turquoise Passage. So, see you guys until next Tuesday. Later, fellas.